Hello, hello, rockers. Dan and Grazi here.
Honored to have Maddie Mae with us. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. You are crazy, busy, almost as if there was no COVID happening in the wedding world.
Yes,
That's something we are
Allotments are.
super curious to know more about. And for those that do not know, Maddie Mae is an elopement photographer. She has been photographing strictly weddings, elopements, with her business, Adventure Stead. And she's an educator teaching all about elopements. So,
Thank you again, Maddie Mae. You rock.
Oh, thanks for having me here, guys. I'm excited. Thanks so much.
can you introduce yourself and tell us a little about your journey as a photographer?
Yeah, definitely. So I started photographing weddings in 2010 when I was, I guess I was 20. I guess I was 17 because I'm 27 now. And so I started photographing weddings, and I photographed weddings for 5 years. Until 2015, and 2015 was when I photographed my first elopement, and I didn't really know that elopements were a thing until I had a couple from Texas who had never been to Colorado before. I live in Colorado. I probably should have said that. I live in Colorado. I've lived in Colorado my whole life. I love traveling a lot. But this is where I live, and they hadn't been to Colorado before, and they said, "Oh, it looks like you grew up in Colorado, you love hiking and doing a bunch of things and seeing, it seems like you see a lot of the most beautiful places where there are mountains, and, will you help us find a spot to elope?" And I was just so excited to help them find the most incredible spot to elope. I had never been asked to help a couple find a spot where they would get married before, and that was really exciting to me as a wedding photographer. I had really only photographed big traditional weddings until then. I had just graduated with a marketing degree from Colorado State University, so I was studying business and marketing, and I was like, this is the most amazing thing. I just felt like I stumbled on this most incredible niche of couples who wanted to get married and really celebrate their marriage and have just a phenomenal experience, but it not be attached to a really big party with, which no, there's nothing wrong with big parties and big weddings. They're just not for me personally as an introvert who's not a party person, doesn't really like crowds. I'm really just prefer being in nature personally. And so the idea of being able to get married somewhere really intimate and stunning in a place that just really inspires you. And the fact that I got to help a couple and help make an impact on what their wedding memories would be like by even helping them pick the location that they got to get married in was so fulfilling to me. I loved it. And I just really, it was that first elopement that I just decided right then and there, this is all that I want to do. I don't even know if it's possible. I haven't seen any other full-time elopement photographers doing only this, but I'm going to figure it out because I love this type of event. I love this type of role as a photographer, but also helping a couple plan and dream up and imagine their whole day. I used my background in business and marketing to really just do this very big rebrand and pivot of my business, and was like, yep, I'm photographing elopements full time now. So it took me about 18 months to fully transition from 100% big weddings to 100% elopements. So kind of working through, how do you market to couples who are eloping? How do you find them? How do you get them to find you is the bigger question. That's all I've been doing for the past 5 years is photographing elopements. In 2017, I photographed 55 of them all on my own. It was a really busy year. I partnered with another photographer, Amber, who joined with me in 2018, and we created Adventure Instead together. And then now there's 3 of us. I brought on another photographer, Tori, who's amazing. And so now there's 3 of us, me, Amber, and Tori, and we photograph around 100 elopements a year as a team. We have photographed a lot internationally until this year, but so some of those have been moved to domestic locations. Some of them have pushed to 2021. But in general, we are actively shooting a lot of elopements right now. It's really, I feel very lucky to have been in this niche pre-COVID. And yeah, it's amazing. I'm super obsessed with elopements. I eloped myself. We eloped in Peru in January of 2019. So
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Just like you said a lot about elopement, but just like to make it clear, because this name changed a lot from how it used to mean and what it means now. How would you define, like, in a nutshell, what is an elopement?
yes, I'm so glad that you asked that because that confuses a lot of people. I feel like elopement is a very American English term that is, there's not often a lot of words for it, even in other languages, I've been told from some of my friends in Europe and all over the world, of just being like, there's not even a word for it here in my country. So to be clear what elopement is, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about it. Couples get confused about what it means. Photographers get confused about what it means. So really, really simply, an elopement is an intentionally very small wedding where the focus of the day is about the couple. So I intentionally don't put like a number cap of like what is an elopement and what is a wedding, because I think that line really depends on what the focus of the day is and what the intention of the couple and the guests who are there are. I would say I've photographed events up to like 25, 30 people that were very much elopements. They had the same really relaxed, stress-free, very intimate setting that, everyone who was there was fully on board with just being there for the couple. No one made it about them. It was not about stealing focus from the couple. It wasn't about, the couple wasn't stressed out all day, worried about their guest experience. They were focused on each other. So I've thought long and hard of like, what's the line between wedding and elopement? And it's really hard to define, but I would say what I've found is the real difference is in the focus. Because I've also been at a 20, 25 person event that felt exactly like a big wedding to me. That was like a lot of stress, a lot of obligation, the couple feeling really forced to do things that they didn't really love and didn't really want to do. Not that that's always what happens at big weddings, but in my experience, having photographed them for 5 years, sometimes that does happen. And so, yeah, so really they're just small weddings. They can be 2 people, they can be 10 people, they can be 25 people. They do not have to be outdoors. They do not have to be adventurous. You can elope in a big city. You can elope at your favorite brewery. It can be just you. You can bring your closest family and friends, and that is all an elopement. I use the term fairly broadly and fairly inclusively, and so do a lot of couples. And I'm loving to see more and more photographers like defining those really intimate weddings that are about the couple as elopements, because I really believe that that's what they are. So.
Awesome. Can you tell us about your mission, your why as an elopement photographer?
Yeah, I'm really glad that you asked this. It's one of the things that I love teaching photographers, is one of the most important core things to figure out, not just for your business and for your brand, but also for yourself. Of like, why do you do what you do? It's very difficult to connect with couples and like sell your services if you aren't clear on that. So that's one of the very first things that when I teach photographers marketing is really how to figure that out. How do you figure out what your why is? I love that book, Start With Why by Simon Sinek. Have you guys read it? It's so good.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And so I've gone through the whole like kind of finding your why process multiple times. I think I've done that exercise almost every year. I love it. I think it's such a good way to really just once a year come together and just be clear on why you're doing what you're doing in the world. It brings a lot of clarity. And so, yeah, I'm just going to pull up. We most recently did this as a team. So we each did the kind of find your why process for each other. So I was kind of sharing my life stories with Amber and Tori, and they were sharing theirs with us, and we just kind of went around. We each created our own individual why statements, and then we created like a collective why and mission statement for Adventure Instead. So for me, so to get personal just for a little bit, I grew up in a really violent alcoholic home, and it was really not a safe place. I had a lot of trauma in my life growing up. I haven't actually spoken to my parents in 3 years. And so, for me, like, elopements are all about creating safe spaces for people. That's really my, like, deepest why as a photographer. And it didn't click with me until I had photographed my first elopement that I really could have never imagined myself having a big wedding, because having a big wedding with my partner there, who I want to spend the rest of my life with, and then also having my family there who has never seen me, known me, loved me, appreciated me, was not a safe space. It would not be a safe, that is not the kind of energy that I would personally want at my wedding day. And, family issues are not the only reason that couples elope, but there are a lot of couples who do elope because of family issues. A lot of people have very complicated families, whether or not you've been through trauma, whether or not your family is safe or not. Sometimes you just don't want their physical presence at your actual wedding day, and it doesn't mean that they're bad people or that you're a bad person. And so, so for me, my personal why statement is to create beautiful and peaceful, safe spaces for people, so that just by showing up and being themselves, that they can experience a deep sense of worthiness, belonging, and unconditional love. That's my personal why statement, and that's just very deeply personal to me. And from my background, I've really spent the last 10 years of my life seeking that kind of safety and, like, finding my own sense of worthiness and belonging from how I grew up. And I love being able to help couples do that through being an elopement photographer. And with Adventure Instead, the mission statement, we came up together as a team that is kind of a blending of all of our personal whys, is we enable couples to focus on what matters most when they get married, having the best elopement experience possible, making their commitment to each other with their hearts wide open. By providing caring, judgment-free expert guidance, we form deep and meaningful relationships with each couple we serve, allowing them to feel safe and have an authentically them wedding day surrounded by nature. So that is our mission at Adventure Instead.
Oh,
Great.
that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So you already said a little bit, but if you can go more deep on that, what are the advantages that couples see when they choose to elope? And what are the big barriers, and how do you go around that?
Yeah, definitely. So I actually did a survey of like 250 couples, and let me pull this up really quick, because I'm a nerd and I love data and research, and actually I really wanted to know why, like, what are the main reasons that couples elope, what is drawing them to have this type of wedding day. So I asked like 250 couples why they wanted to elope and have the data like analyzed and categorized. And so really the very number one reason why couples elope, the biggest benefit, the biggest advantage of eloping, and almost every single couple that I asked said some version, they wanted a just us wedding day. They wanted a wedding day that was actually about them and was for them, that the experience was for them. And it's not that big weddings can't be like that, but I think there is a large percentage of couples that have been to a lot of big weddings of maybe some of their friends, or, seeing friends and family members get married and just be like, I don't feel like this day is even about you at a certain point. It's about everybody and everything else, which isn't wrong. It's just different. And there's a lot of couples who are really just looking for a wedding day that boils it back down to what a wedding, in my opinion, is supposed to be, which is about two people committing their lives to each other, and that being that experience. So that's the number one benefit of eloping. I'll just quickly go through the other reasons here because they're really great. Couples are looking for a wedding day that really is authentic to them versus feeling like they have all these kind of traditions and obligations that may not feel like who they are, kind of imposed on them. A lot of big traditional weddings have a lot of tradition that comes with them that may not feel like you as a couple. Three, like wanting something that's really intimate and intentional. And I know that a lot of couples, are like, oh, I just want to have everyone that I ever known at my wedding day. I just want to spend time with all of them. And again, I'm a nerd, so I did some math. And if you have 150 guests and you just want to have a 3-minute conversation with each of them, that's like 7.5 hours of just trying to have conversations with people, and those are just 3-minute conversations. So I've seen a lot of couples be like, oh, I didn't even get to spend time or talk to anyone who came all this way anyway. And so you're really cutting down that guest count and being actually able to have intimate and meaningful conversations with the people who you love the most, who are there to celebrate you, is a really big reason for eloping. Less family drama, like we just talked about, is another one. And so really just wanting to have a space that is, free from that is a reason. A lot of couples value their experience over their wedding day over the stuff of it. So they value like having a really good time and actually enjoying themselves and having fun over, the expense of like tablecloths and all the other. There's a lot of stuff involved with big weddings. The average big wedding results in like 400 to 600 pounds of trash, and that's not something that a lot of couples really like the idea of. Elopements have less stress and anxiety. They are usually a lot easier to plan. There is still planning involved with elopements. That's a big thing that I help couples with as an elopement photographer. But there's certainly not like planning, like the logistics of planning a 150, 200 person event. A lot of introverted couples elope. They don't want to feel like they're the center of attention all the time. That idea of being in a white dress or in a suit and kind of being in front of a huge crowd of people is like a lot for some couples. They don't like that idea at all. And a lot of couples like the freedom of being able to do so many other different things that you really can't do if you have 200 people at a wedding venue. They want to go on an adventure. They want to go hiking. They want to just do something that's fun and them. And, finally, a lot of couples who really, really value photography and having amazing photos really want to elope instead of having a big wedding. They want more time to get those kind of photos. They want more time with their photographer. They want more time connecting with each other. So those are the reasons that couples elope. As far as the barriers to couples eloping, one of the number one, which I'm glad you asked it, is so many misconceptions about eloping. I'd say that's one of the biggest barriers of like misconceptions that eloping is selfish, that, couples who elope are, they have something to be ashamed about. And, couples who elope, they must hate their families, they must be terrible people, or they must be loners. There's a lot of old misconceptions around what elopements are that I think that stigma is a big reason why couples, have a hard time wrapping around it and identifying with it immediately. And then family pressure is a really, really big one. We're constantly working with couples who, maybe started, going down the route of having maybe 10 people there, and then we're like, nope, just the two of us, and then maybe went back, that pressure of should we or should we not have family there at all. That is a really big piece of also whether couples elope or have big weddings. So we work with a lot of couples to, help them, hey, like here's some really good things you can say to your family that, are going to help you explain why you're eloping in a way that makes sense to them. Here's also some ways you can involve your family in the process of you getting married, even if they're not there physically on your wedding day. There's lots of beautiful creative solutions. You can have a 2-day elopement and have one day that's just you and one day that is with your friends and family. There's lots of different ways to kind of have the experience that you're looking for and that you really want as a couple, and to make sure that you're not like hurting anyone. So yeah.
Great.
And you just said about like having 2 days of elopement. And a lot of people are even curious about what is an all-day elopement look like. What would be like an all-day elopement, and how would you craft that? Wow.
I love that. I love that question. That was one of the first things that when I decided to photograph elopements full time, that was one of my biggest worries, was this idea that, oh, no. Couples who are eloping, they only want 1 or 2 hours of photography coverage. So how in the world could you make a living as an elopement photographer? And I think for me, it really helped to have a background in big traditional weddings, because I really just applied the exact same logic to elopements. And really, with a big traditional wedding, it's the industry standard. It's very normal. It's comfortable. It is understood that you want the whole story of your wedding day to be told. Like, you want photos of the whole day, of the whole experience. You want getting ready photos. You want the photos of your first look. You want, couples portraits together. You want photos of the ceremony. You want photographs of family and friends. You want photos of the celebration that you have after you get married. maybe some other couples photos weaved in there. Like, for anyone who's photographed big traditional weddings, like you can very easily imagine this all 8, 10, 12-hour wedding day timeline in your head as a photographer. And when I started photographing elopements, it really was confusing to me. Okay, they're still getting married. It's still their wedding day. It's still going to be their anniversary date for the rest of their life. Their wedding isn't less. It doesn't mean less. It isn't less important than a couple having a big wedding. And I really think that it's kind of a chicken egg scenario in my mind, where photographers don't believe that couples want more than 2 hours of coverage, so that's all they offer, and in exchange that's all couples think that they need. And it just creates this system where really it was so simple. Once I just started telling couples, like, hey, your wedding deserves just as much documentation as any other couple getting married, anyone having a big wedding. I want to tell the whole story of your wedding day. I want you to be able to look back on your whole wedding day worth of photos just like anyone else. It's like, boom, light bulb moment. Couples get it. They're like, yeah, of course. Like, of course we deserve just as much documentation as a couple having a big wedding. The activities that we do, the timeline might look vastly different for an elopement, and so one of the things that I do with couples is help them figure out that timeline and all the different fun things that they can do. But the really simplest way to explain it to a couple is to say, okay, and I can actually do this with the two of you. Just if the two of you just look at each other just for a second. Yeah, go for it. Do it. So if the two of you had a free day together where you could do anything that you wanted from the time you got up to the time you went to bed, what are all the fun things that you would do that you would do together? Where would you want to eat? What would the view look like when you got up in the morning? What season would it be? What scenery would you want to explore? Whether it's in a city, out of a city. What is the most fun, amazing day that the two of you could have together? And yes, like exactly. And with elopements, there's no limits to any of that. I love it. There's no limits. There's no rules. You can do anything that you want on the day that you get married, from the time you get up to the time you go to bed. Somewhere in there, and I photograph outdoor adventure elopements. Somewhere in there, most of the time, my couples are in really beautiful space that really inspires them. They say their vows and they get married. But just like any other couple, that's not the extent of their wedding day. It is a day. It is a whole day, and it is a story that they're going to want to tell. And the images as an elopement photographer, in my opinion, I've found that they are more valuable to couples than big wedding images, because I am the only one there sometimes witnessing it and taking photos. They don't have 100 guests with camera phones there, and really my images are sometimes the only way to really communicate what their wedding day experience was like to all the people that know them and that love them. It's incredibly important, incredibly meaningful to get all-day documentation of your wedding day. And so for any photographers who this is a new concept to, I would challenge you, like, if you would never suggest to a couple that they only get 1 or 2 hours of their wedding day coverage, why would you suggest that to a couple eloping? And I just love putting that out there of just like 1 or 2 hours is not enough for anyone's wedding day. And like, as big wedding photographers, we know that pretty inherently. And really just wrapping your mind around, it is your wedding day. It's not a photo shoot. It isn't just this quick thing. They're still getting married. It is not the same as a photo shoot. Elopement should not be priced like photo shoots. I challenge all photographers who are interested in photographing elopements to offer the same amount of coverage at the same price for elopements as they do big weddings. And I know there's this opinion that couples won't afford that, but I listed off the whole list of reasons why couples elope, and none of them were money. None of them were. That's not anywhere near the top list of reasons why couples are eloping. If you look at all of the expenses that come along with a big wedding, like, they have a certain amount budgeted for photography, whereas an elopement photographer, all of those other expenses are gone, and they're prioritizing their experience over everything else. So if you can, as an elopement photographer, help them have an amazing experience, they will invest in that. We are photographing 100 elopements this year and next year, and we're booking at an average of $7,200 per elopement. most of our couples book 8 or 9 hours with us. So it is not impossible in the slightest. Like, we've been doing this for 5 years, and it's really just very simple to communicate to a couple, you deserve just as much documentation as anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Great. What makes a good elopement photographer?
Yeah, that is a great question. So I think one of the biggest pieces is building relationships with your couple. That is more important as an elopement photographer than it is as a big wedding photographer. Of course, it's important as a big wedding photographer too, but as sometimes being the only other person there, the only other human being at their wedding day, not their best friends, not their family members, that relationship and building trust with couples is one of the most important things of the entire process. So building trust from the first time you send an email through every single step of your workflow, on the phone call, working with them beforehand, having really good communication, and how you treat a couple on their wedding day. All of that is, you have so much more of an impact on their experience as an elopement photographer. That was one of the biggest things that was really kind of mind-boggling to me. Like, the first time I shot a 2-person elopement, I got into my car and cried afterward, because it was just such a different kind of experience. It really just kind of rocked me how much of an intimate relationship I had built with that couple, and I had just experienced them get married, and I was the only other person there. And then they got in their car when we were done and kind of drove away, and I was like, oh my gosh, what just happened? And how am I the only person that got to witness that? That was incredible. And I just looked at my camera and realized how important that my role was to them. I was like, these are the only photos that it will ever exist of their wedding day, and I was the only other person that saw it in real life. And it really kind of rocked me the first time. And it still does. It still blows me away. 5 years later, I often cry at elopements because they're so intimate and meaningful, and with couples feel so safe to be themselves. I have witnessed so much more emotion personally than I ever did as a big wedding photographer. Just the relationships that you build, and just honoring and really realizing what a big responsibility it is. And so that's why I really challenge photographers who are kind of imagining elopements to just be glorified photo shoots to, no, they really are not. They're nothing like a glorified photo shoot. They are the most incredible, I would compare them to the most incredible wedding day that I'd ever been a part of, that I just felt so lucky to be there, and just so blown away, and just feeling such a big responsibility to do an amazing job for my couple. It's that times 10 on every single elopement. So really taking care of your couples, communicating with them, building trust with them, I would very much argue that is the biggest thing that makes a good elopement photographer.
Wow. It's so nice to see your passion. What is your main advice for photographers planning or moving from traditional weddings to elopements?
Yeah, so I made that transition myself, and I know that it's scary. That's, I work with a lot of photographers who are in that transition point right now, and I think one of the biggest barriers is fear, really. It's fear of not succeeding, fear that that eloping couples don't believe in investing in photography, fear that eloping couples won't want all-day coverage. There's a lot of fear around it. I would say that is one of the biggest barriers. So my best advice for big wedding photographers who are shifting to elopements is to really rely on your experience and everything you know as a big wedding photographer, and pretty much apply everything you can directly to elopements. I think making that mindset shift from an elopement being like an engagement shoot or like a photo shoot, and treating it exactly like a wedding, just starting there. Eloping couples actually need a lot more than a big wedding photographer. I think one of the biggest misconceptions from photographers that really holds them back is thinking that elopements are less work than big weddings, when they are not. They are a lot more work as a photographer than a big wedding, which sounds a little bit nuts at the beginning, but trust me, like big weddings, you know, in general, like you aren't as involved in the creation of their wedding day. When I was a big wedding photographer, almost all my inquiries were coming to me with a venue and a date. And almost none of the couples who inquire with me for elopements have either of those things when they contact me. They don't have a venue, they don't have a date, they don't know anything about where they want to get married. They are relying on me as an expert to help them with that. So, you know, from how they inquire in their initial contact form to when we're on the phone call before booking, really helping, you know, really being an expert and being generous with your knowledge and your expertise. And I find this a really fun, creative part of the process of being an elopement photographer is I get the opportunity to share with couples the most amazing locations that I've ever been to and really kind of play matchmaker between amazing locations and amazing couples and helping them find the most perfect spot for them to say their vows. And I just think that that's so cool of thinking like, wow, I am the reason that they got married right here. I'm the reason that like they might come back here on their anniversary day and be like, yeah, we got married here. And when you elope, you know, you don't need to get married in the venue that hundreds of other couples have been. You can pick your own spot that maybe no one else has ever gotten married there. So as an elopement photographer, the amount of time helping couples plan, location scout, figure out where, help them through the permitting process, help them imagine all the fun activities that they could do in their wedding day. Really, I mean, I'd say really wrapping your mind around what an all-day elopement is probably the most crucial piece of advice for someone wanting to successfully pivot from big weddings to elopements. So thinking through of just like helping expand couples' minds and open up the possibilities of what their wedding day means. Of yes, you can go on a hike, or no, we can just go sightseeing and just like drive around. We can go to like 8 different places. You know, yeah, we can go to your favorite brewery. Yeah, we can have like a picnic. Yeah, let's just like lay in a hammock. You guys should just take a nap and I'll just go chill over there for a little bit. Like it's, you know, it's very different, the experience, than a big wedding. It's like throw out the whole rule book and you just start with like helping a couple create the most incredible day for them from scratch. And so really just knowing they're not less work than big weddings. They should not, and I repeat, not be priced less than big weddings because they are a lot more work. And they are, yeah, I would very easily argue, more valuable than wedding photography coverage. And it's kind of an insult to couples to say that their day isn't worth the same amount of coverage. It's kind of an insult to couples to say that it's not, you know, that you're not going to be putting 100% of yourself into their wedding day just like you have for other couples' big weddings. That is definitely my biggest advice for elopement, for photographers wanting to pivot. So
Awesome. Thank you.
Can you tell us about your elopement course?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So, about 2 years ago, I had taught a lot of workshops, and I had mentored a lot of photographers who were really asking me, how do I get in on this elopement thing? And really, if you look at Google Trends, if you Google the word elopement for the last 5 years, it's just going like this. Like the industry is growing at a massive pace, and you know, COVID is terrible. Obviously, it's the worst. But the one silver lining, at least in the elopement industry, is that there's never been more couples in the world who have been trying to figure out how can I still have an amazing wedding day with a lot less people there than now. And really, there's never been a better time that I've seen in my lifetime and in the last 10 years in this industry than to really get clear as a photographer, how can you help couples through this process? And you know, if they're still getting married this year, if they're still saying their vows this year, and that's the day they're going to consider their wedding date for the rest of their life, that's their wedding. That's their wedding, not the party they're having next year. The day that they're saying their vows is their wedding day. It deserves to be treated like their wedding day and documented just like their wedding day. So the elopement photographer course, I started creating it two years ago when I realized there's so many photographers that I wanted to help figure this out, and I couldn't teach enough in-person workshops or mentor enough photographers one-on-one to be able to do that. So I created a online course that is really just an A to Z business and marketing focused course. So it doesn't actually show the like shooting on location part, because my background is in business and marketing. That's what I believe is like 98% of the reason I've found success as a photographer. And so really the course is broken down into 4 sections. First section teaches you everything about branding and all of your marketing foundations. How do you create an amazing brand that is going to magnetize and attract eloping couples? Because there are very, very different type of couple than a couple having a big wedding. Your website needs to look differently, say different things, solve different problems than a website for big wedding couples. The second section is like the meatiest, beefiest part, probably the most valuable part of the course. It's all about marketing. It's all about SEO, Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook ads. How do you get elopement inquiries? My business right now, and when I created the course, my business was getting like 50, 60 elopement inquiries a month. We got 250 elopement inquiries a month last year. Last month. Last month we got 250 elopement inquiries. This month we'll probably get, our average is probably more like 120, 150 elopement inquiries a month. And that's, all of that is from SEO, Instagram, Pinterest, and Facebook ads. We're not even running Facebook ads right now, but so really I just go over A to Z. What is a strategic marketing plan? And so the course comes with a 90-day marketing plan that shows you exactly how to implement all of these things and get elopement inquiries within 90 days. That's what the course is designed to do. And then the third section is all about, okay, you got these elopement inquiries. How do you explain an all-day elopement to a couple on the phone? How do you convert those inquiries into all-day elopement bookings? That's also probably like the equally most valuable part of the course there. And the final section is, how do you create an amazing experience for eloping couples? Because the workflow is different. The things you're going to be helping a couple with is different than what you need to do for a big wedding. So it's everything in there, from how do you location scout, how do you build an elopement timeline, what systems and workflow questionnaires do you need to have to ask eloping couples and help them figure this whole process out. So it's an A to Z, like building an elopement business course is really what it is. And it's great. You can find it at adventureinsteadacademy.com. I, as far as I know, believe is the only course that teaches you how to build an elopement business. So I love it. There's an amazing, one of the best parts of the course is there's a VIP group of 600 photographers who have this course, who are actively building their own elopement businesses right now, and I love it. I love that group so much. I love helping photographers figure out how to do this. There's never been a better time to learn how to book and photograph more elopements.
And is it open now? The course?
It is open right now, yeah. So I'm working on some updates to it because it came out a year ago, and so I'm like updating and adding things right now. But it is open. And yeah, so I think there's going to be probably a sale period later this year, but right now it is still available. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you
Congratulations
so much
for your work and your education.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys having me here. It's great talking with you. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you were able to learn so much and see so much from you. You have this huge passion with the elopements. It's contagious.
I love elopements. I am glad that it's contagious. I think they're amazing. Have you guys ever gotten to photograph an elopement?
We did. It's not our focus, but we travel full time. We had this project where the goal was to photograph at least one wedding in each state. So we did an elopement in Vegas. The couple were from Australia, and it was so much fun. I love that. But we still love the big weddings as well. So it's something like we are not thinking on doing just one thing. We love being with the couple. We love one thing that we like a lot is doing that multi-day wedding. Is something that we kind of specialize with. We do a wedding and then the next day with just a couple. but that is more like a shoot after they got married. So on a day after, we always go out with them and have a moment with them somewhere special, like a landmark, and or somewhere special for them. So we do that like with almost 100% of our weddings. We always have this next day shoot with them. But elopement, we haven't done that many, but the ones we did, it was very special.
That's cool. I love that idea of a multi-day wedding. I've done quite a few multi-day elopements. But yeah, if you guys like this idea, you might want to try suggesting it to your couples. They might find that it's really fun. I've had a lot of couples who have had 2-day intimate weddings / elopements where they've had like a day with maybe their 20 family members there, and they have their ceremony with their family, but then they want their second day of their elopement to be all about them doing all the fun things that they want to do. But a really fun thing to try is to invite them to bring their vows again and read them.
Oh, that's a special.
Yeah, and honestly, it's I've seen this so many times where like the vow reading is just as incredible and meaningful and emotional the second time as the first time, because especially at a bigger wedding, you're just, oh my gosh, there's so much going on. You're hardly being able to focus on the words and really hear them. And so if you do that with all of your couples, inviting them, hey, what do you think about just bringing your vows again, and just the two of you really listening to those words and really hearing them again. And I think that would be amazing for couples to have a space where it's just like no distractions, nothing else, just remembering what their partner said to them yesterday and just like feeling it all over again and having that space to do that. I think that you're
that's a great idea. In fact, we do say like the next day is a day for you like to have this moment to be just the two of you together. On the day of the wedding, there are so many things going on, but on the next, like when we go out for photos, you're still thinking, oh my gosh, I still have to do this dance, I still have to do those things, all those things that I still have to do. And then on a day after, it's just like you're just happy. You're not anxious. You're not. You're just happy, and it's just a moment for the two of you to get back in your dress, and they love that as well because on the day before they like they're worried of the dress getting dirty and all of that, and then on the day after it's dirty anyway. So so that we get to go to some cool places, and it's just a moment for them, and then we are there taking photos and being with them. But I love to have this space for them, and I never thought about that. That's a great idea to exchange vows again. That's awesome. Thank you.
It's super beautiful, and I've had couples do it the opposite way as well, where they've read their vows, just the two of them, the day before, and then read them again with their family, and they're both really beautiful emotional experiences. Reading your vows again and seeing your mom there crying, that's a very different experience. But hearing your vows and focusing on those words when it's just the two of you, you might hear things and feel things that you weren't able to feel the first time that you heard them. So yeah, I think that's amazing that you guys do that for all of your couples. That's an amazing experience to invite them for them. That's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay, then. Thank you so much again. Thank you for your time. Thank you for everything.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's great meeting you guys.
Nice to meet you
Thank
too.
you. Nice
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye now.